What do you think, Pat?
What? What?
Do you think ghosts can be gay?
Yeah, if they were gay when they were alive, then yes.
But do ghosts have sexual tendencies, though?
Well,
Yes.
you can be gay or straight or whatever and still have and not have sexual tendencies.
Also, hold on. Why do we think that ghosts, once they're dead, they leave their mortal coil behind? Why do you think that they would be restrained by quote queerdom? I think they're just like, we were so
Yeah.
fucking wrong.
Oh,
I think yeah.
All those labels were fucking dumb. Let's just fuck whoever, and like not be restrained by that.
and
That's my opinion.
with that, I'm recording. So
Amazing.
with that lovely start, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of What Do the Gays Think? Today with me, I have, of course, as beautiful as ever, the lovely Pat. How you doing, Pat?
I'm very dry. It's winter right now, and my skin's very dry. And I've just been lathering myself in lotion, and it's not working.
Okay.
My foot is like dry, cracky.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything about you lathering lotion.
Yeah.
Okay. And also joining us again, we have the handsome and delicate Jackie. How you doing, Jackie?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're bringing Jackie in today for another episode because we have a topic today that Jackie would find... Pat just looks like he was about to throw up.
Sorry, the
Are
coffee.
you okay, Pat? Oh no, the stevia not.
So to
Slapping wrong.
cover the taste of the Truvia stevia, whatever, I like poured a bunch of my sweet creamer in it. So now it's a very sweet drink, and then underneath it is the Truvia fake sugar flavor. So none of it's enjoyable.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, that was. Oh,
You have a whole cup of that ahead of you.
I
That's
know.
like
I'm just
a
gonna
whole
power
adventure.
through it.
Well, don't die. Anyway, Jackie, we brought Jackie in today for another episode because today's topic we're going to be talking about Avatar, not the Blue People, the animated series, the Legend of Aang, and also the Legend of Korra. And Jackie, you are a fan of the show as well, so we thought we'd bring you
huge
in.
fan. Yes. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the background, right behind me, you can actually see a Legend of Korra statue, little figure.
Yeah.
That Matt didn't remember giving me for a holiday or birthday.
I was like, why is Jackie
He was like,
screaming?
"Oh, nice statue."
Wait. He didn't remember giving it to you, but you can't remember when he gave it to you? Because you said
No.
holiday or birthday, so neither of you remember when this gift was
But at
given or
least-
received.
No.
But at least I remember that he was the bequeather of such a wonderful,
I thought you said bequeafer.
of such a wonderful gift.
I didn't know Matt could bequeath, but
Don't worry
Well-
about it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I don't remember giving the statue to you, Jackie, so...
Guess our friendship is just one forgetful occasion after another.
It's just one big blackout, which, I mean...
True.
Did I
sounds
ever,
like me every Friday night.
did I ever tell you, Pat, about how when me and Jackie were playing Danganronpa, one of our sessions, Jackie was, I think, on cold medicine or something, and she just
Yeah.
forgot that we had even played.
I legit blacked out. I was on cold medicine and then I got sick during the session. And the next day when we went to play again, I was like, why are we here? Like, I don't remember any of this.
Were you robo-tripping? Was that it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. Don't robo-trip.
Oof.
All right, let's actually get in to talk to Avatar. So the topic today is we're going to be comparing Avatar: The Last Airbender to The Legend of Korra, and we're going to be saying, well, what do the gays think? Is Korra better or is Aang better? Well, you know what? Not even the two characters themselves. Which show is better is what we're going to be talking about. And before we even obviously say our opinions, because that's what this podcast is, right? We're saying, what do we think? What do the gays think?
Yes.
I have a couple of notes.
Yes.
Um,
Share.
I wrote down what I think The Last Airbender did well, what I think it didn't do well, and then I have what I think The Legend of Korra did well and what I don't think it did well. And then at the end, we can kind of come together and decide which one is better. And we'll probably have differing opinions on that. I already think I know what Pat is going to say. I'm not sure about Jackie, but
I don't know anything, so I'm very excited to.
Oh, me neither.
hear
I
your
know nothing. I'm
opinions.
dumb.
oh
Who's
my.
Aang?
No, we
Stop
don't
it.
talk. No, we're not talking about the
Don't
movie.
talk about it.
We're not talking about the live action movie in my Christian podcast. Okay.
That's right.
So what Avatar: The Last Airbender did well. So my list, literally at the top of my list, Uncle Iroh.
Aww.
Just he was the best character. He was like he just was so good. So I have written he was quite literally the best mentor trope filler I've ever seen in any show ever. And if you guys have ever, had any type of writing class about like these kind of fantasy type adventures, there's sometimes like this mentor type character that kind of guides the main character and then eventually disappears, and the main character has to go off on his own and figure things out. I think Uncle Iroh, even though the mentor was Zuko, who's not the main character, even though he's one of the main characters, I think he fulfills that role exceptionally well. Plus, he's hilarious.
Oh my god.
He's got his tea trope. He loves his tea, and I think the gimmick never gets old, and his dynamic with Zuko is just hilarious, especially throughout, seasons 1 and 2. And it's very heartwarming. I love their relationship.
It really, like you said, I've never seen a show, or actually any media, like I'm thinking of like books where, well, maybe Harry Potter, but like where the character of the mentor is just done so exceptionally well.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Pat, what do you think?
Oh, I think he's lovely.
He's the best.
I mean, he's like, no one hates him. Like, no one ever says like, oh my god, that character was useless or boring or like dumb or whatever. Like, he's the father figure Zuko needed because his real father was an idiot and awful and a dictator. He's a great mentor to both. Basically, all the characters have a moment with him, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not Sokka, I don't think, but Toph, Zuko, Katara, and Aang all have moments with him where they, connect and learn something more about themselves or about their situation. So he's just all around helping everyone out.
Yeah, so I think that they did Uncle Iroh like extremely well, and that is one of the great things about The Last Airbender. Zuko's character arc is my next point as well. I also think this is quite possibly the best redemption arc I've seen out of any show that I've ever seen or any like book or any type of content that I've ever gone through. I think Zuko's redemption arc is like the best I've ever seen, and it's not like it was unforeseeable. Like even in season 1 you kind of see Zuko struggling with his inner demons and like trying to be a good person, but at the same time striving for this honor that he keeps striving for. But yeah, there's a couple episodes where there's the storm episode where they're out in the storm, and like Zuko decides to save his crew over chasing the Avatar. Like you can see that he's genuinely a good person, but he's just struggling with his inner demons and struggling to restore honor with his father. His redemption arc is just so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, and then go ahead, Jackie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think the show does a really good job of expressing how much pressure expectations can put on you, and you see that just throughout Zuko, and very much a coming of age story, but also, like you said, redemption, figuring out that those things are not necessarily equal to me, and they do not have to push me along a path that I no longer want to pursue. And I think him coming into himself and realizing who he is and what he cares for is just, I have not seen a show that does it as well. I'm thinking of the other redemption arc that's really popular in an anime, Naruto. I have not seen all of Naruto, but I know basically everything. With Sasuke, and while I haven't seen it, I didn't feel as connected to Sasuke's redemption arc as I did with Zuko. I think there's something so heartwarming about Zuko and him as a person that just came across so wonderfully to viewers.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it was very relatable because, just wanting to, be the son that your parents want you to be is something that, a lot of people struggle with. And, defying your parents' expectations is difficult. Even though Zuko goes through he goes through the entirety of season 2 basically being shunned at that point. And he was like, well, there's not really any hope of me returning. So he kind of comes into his own towards the end of season 2. Like, okay, maybe, I should follow this path. But then when he's presented with the offer, like, hey, you can come back if you do this thing, like you betray, your uncle, you go against the Earth Kingdom, you do this, and you can come back, and he does it. And then when he goes back, it's not all it's cracked up to be, and I just think that is pretty telling.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they went down that route. It was very interesting. Pat?
Yeah, it's what Jackie said about like the Sasuke arc comparison. Yeah, like I think Zuko really realizes, the error of his ways and understands there's a better way of doing things. So he joins, Team Avatar, and he eventually goes to fight his father or like, help in the war effort. Um, Sasuke does kind of like the exact opposite, where he sees like the error of his ways and decides to be worse to really clean up.
Good.
Not to spoil anything for Naruto, so I won't say anything more than that. But like they both have that moment of like, I've been led to believe the wrong thing about my family and about our history. Zuko's like, I have to become better, and Sasuke's like, I have to become worse because nothing's getting done right. So yeah, I think Zuko's redemption arc is far more relatable than Sasuke's, and is executed better. I think.
I love every moment of it. Next on my list, just the entirety of season 2. Like it was, season 2 was hands down, in my opinion, the best of the 3 seasons. From the moment Toph enters the chat, here she is, blind and amazing. From the moment she enters the chat to the end of the season is all plot driven, and it's all really exciting content. And there I don't think that there was a filler episode in there anywhere. There may have been like one. And even the one filler episode, I think it was the Tales of Ba Sing Se, right?
Oh, yeah.
The one filler episode that may have been there. But even that episode was like really good.
Yes.
So hands down, season 2, the entirety of it. So plot driven, so focused. It was amazing. What do you guys think?
I love Tales of Ba Sing Se as an episode strictly. That episode always makes me cry. But overall, season 2 is really, I think they took all of the setup that they did right in season 1 and just like came right out of the gate going super, super fast and really great with all of those characters that just allowed it to have a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement.
I like season 2 a lot, but I feel season 3 is underappreciated.
I agree. I think season 3 is also fantastic.
Because I can say for sure that like season 1 is my least favorite, just because there's so much filler. They're moving around to the different air temples, and they move around to the North Pole to get some training, and there's a lot of filler in between. But the season 3 episode, I can't remember if it's episode 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, where it might be the first episode where Aang goes to like the Fire Nation town and goes to school.
Oh,
and you learn how the Fire Nation colonies are not the colonies, like he poses to be from the colonies, and how Fire Nation students are indoctrinated to believe these things, and Aang, being alive back in the day, knows the real truth about it. That is so, because that further explains why the Fire Nation believes they're the best nation. And that goes to like American history, where students are just raised to believe that their country is like the best thing on the planet and has done no wrong. So like that is amazing. And also having it in a kids show on Nickelodeon was even more impressive, because that's a huge topic that I don't think a lot of people, even adults, like to reconcile with. So while season 3 had like, some issues, I think in that respect it's a very good season. But I do love season 2 as well, obviously.
Do you think the creators knew what they were doing when they
100%.
wrote that episode?
I think the creators knew that, especially when we talk about Legend of Korra later, that they had 2 sets of audiences. They had like younger adult, and they had like as in like maybe teenager and younger than that on Nickelodeon. Then they had like the older crowd who just like animated shows, and they were writing for both of them, and they did a very good job of writing for both of them.
Yeah, I did have this as one of my points on what ATLA did well, actually. ATLA being Avatar: The Last Airbender. It knows it's a show meant for kids, because obviously, it was on Nickelodeon. I don't see it that much being written for an adult crowd, if you ask me. They very much hide away like the tragic parts of the war, if you ask me. Like, I mean, you see some of it, and you see like the refugees being forced to go to Ba Sing Se, but like for the most part, you do not see like the destruction that the Fire Nation is wreaking on the Earth Kingdom at the time. So that, I mean, it knows it's a show meant for kids, so it kind of hides that away a little bit. And you can kind of also see that in Aang's personality. He's very lighthearted, he's very goofy. All of the, you know, jokes are very childish, and, you know, it's a child show. And I think ATLA actually does it very well because it knows it's a TV show meant for kids. Which actually kind of flip-flops when you get to Legend of Korra, and we could talk about that later. So I'll just keep going down my Avatar The Last Airbender list. Still what I think it did well, Azula's downfall towards the end of season 3. Like, she comes in season 2, which is fine. I think they probably could have introduced her a little bit earlier. But she fulfills the role that she needs to play, which is the antagonist of season 2 and pretty much season 3 as well. And oh my god, her downfall, that scene where May and Ty Lee betray her in the boiling rock, it still gives me goosebumps.
Oh my god.
Every time I watch it, it gives me goosebumps. I'm like, hello?
Isn't May like I love Zuko more than I fear you or whatever? Isn't that the line?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the line.
And then Azula says, well, you miscalculated. You should have feared me more.
Yes.
And then Ty Lee goes off on her, and I'm like, oh my god.
Ty Lee is like looking back and forth like, and then just like, boop, 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 boop.
Amazing.
I think that scene is like definitely in my perhaps top 3 scenes in that show. Perhaps.
I really liked the long time coming payoff that moment had, because you see elements of their, like, how they weren't actually friends, and how that relationship between from Zula to May and Ty Lee was not actually a true relationship. It was one very much built on fear and position of power from the get-go. You can see that from the start, where Azula goes to get Ty Lee, and she does that crazy shit with the circus, and she tries to make this scenario more and more and more dangerous for Ty Lee to perform for Azula, until Ty Lee eventually is like, you know, well, I think she says something like, Azula says to Ty Lee, I thought the circus was your calling, and Ty Lee says something back like, well, you just called a little bit louder. And I think it is a perfect example of just how much Azula wields her power to make others yield to her in a way that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and that payoff that comes off towards the end of season 3, it was a long time coming. Because even I think, what was it, the Ember Island episode where...
Yeah! One of the best episodes of the series.
Yeah, where Ty Lee was, I think, flirting with a whole bunch of people, and Azula was like, well, they're only paying attention to you because you want them to, or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can see just how, like, actually fucked up she is. And she's 14 years old, keep in mind, too. What her family background and her position has, like, just really messed her up mentally. She has not had a like youthful childhood and stuff. I think she ends up saying to those 2 boys who own the house, where he's like, well, my dad's the Coast Guard general or something. She's like, she goes off and she has that crazy girl look. She's like, well, have you ever done like whatever, and you just have so much power, and I'm like the Fire Lord Nation's daughter, and you will yield to me. She said something really crazy and completely off cue socially, and you can really see how much damage has been done to her.
Oh yeah, as soon as you see these 4 kids in this like normal scenario, you're like, ooh.
Oh, sweetie, you guys don't, this isn't your party at all.
Oh my god. But yeah, Azula, even as you get towards the end of that season, where you start seeing her break down, and, you know, her psychotic breaks, her imagining her mother being there when she clearly wasn't, and then, you know, the ultimate breakdown at the end. It was just so good. It was so good.
So good.
Oh my god.
Good.
And then last thing I have on what Last Airbender did well was just that all of the main characters, I liked all of them. Like, I don't think there was a single main character that I did not like, which, when we get to Legend of Korra, I can't say the same for, because there was a main character that I did not like.
I wonder who it was.
And I'll get there.
It was Korra.
Korra. No, I love Korra. It was not Korra. But we'll get there. But yeah, hands down, like, all of them have such personality, and, you know, you get episodes that surround each one of them. And I just really enjoyed all of the main cast of ATLA. All right. So what I think ATLA did not do well. Here we go. Ozai. He was not that good of a villain, if you ask me.
No.
Azula was the better villain of the show. I think, in my opinion, she was probably the main antagonist of the show, which, yeah, they build up this whole, Ozai's the big bad and Aang has to go fight him at the end. And yeah, the final battle was amazing. The tension was great, but Ozai was just, you barely see him at all throughout the entire show. And I just don't like these storylines in general for like any content, where the big bad is this some like mysterious being that you don't get to understand and you don't get to, get into their head to figure out what they're thinking. And Ozai just was not that. He was just not good. What do you guys think?
I personally didn't mind Ozai's character portrayal. I think we got a lot of his character background from Zuko's perspective, where you could really see all of the crazy shit that he's done. So I didn't mind that. I think it was actually fitting for Aang's story, being saddled with all of these huge expectations and huge burdens, that in his mind, Ozai was built up to be this like massive figure, and then in reality he was a fucked up person who made poor decisions and was cold and calculating. And I think it was okay for him to be kind of a quote unquote like smaller person, in the sense that we got a lot of that background from Zuko and how he was just not good.
Yeah, so here's what I also think about that. The Aang versus Ozai battle, while it was amazing, tension, animation style, etc., the ending was not as satisfying. And I think it's because Aang and Ozai didn't really talk at all throughout the entire show except for that last fight. Like, there's the tension between Zuko and Azula during their final battle, because their relationship and you've been watching them. And you're like, yes, finally Azula is defeated at the hands of Zuko and Katara. But like Aang versus Ozai was just like, there was no build up between them. So I was kind of like, meh. That was, even though the battle was great. The battle was great, but
the choreography for the battle was amazing. I think to your point, if there had been some kind of like couple moments where we had them talking, or even like some kind of little subplot where they had gotten to interact a little bit more, that could have been really beneficial.
Yeah. What do you think, Pat?
I think I'm conflicted because like a good villain for me is someone you can empathize with, obviously. So if they had done more background work on him, besides just showing flashbacks with him and Zuko when Zuko was younger, but actually maybe flashbacks of him when he was younger with his father, with what is that? Not Sozin.
Azulan.
Azulan. To get a better sense of why he is the way he is, that would have been better. But a lot of times I feel like, especially because the show was painting him as like the ultimate evil and Aang as like the ultimate good in this scenario, you didn't really need it. You just had to be like, okay, he's this really just awful dude. Because it's unfortunate because I didn't like him as a villain that much either, but I love Mark Hamill who voiced him.
Yeah.
And Mark Hamill also voices the Joker in the Batman animated series, and that character has no background. But the reason that villain is compelling is because of his relationship with Batman. So if Ozai had a more compelling relationship with Aang, you didn't even have to give him background. If they had more time together prior to the fight, it would have been much more satisfying, I think, in the finale. So I think if, let's say like in season 1 or 2 or something, they had a few interactions, or like Aang was captured, or like they met briefly, or something, it would have made it compelling without having to do like a whole episode or 2 episode of like Ozai's childhood, which I don't think would have been necessary.
Yeah, and I'll get to this when we get to Legend of Korra as well. Korra does have a relationship, at least at some point, with each of the villains of each of the 4 seasons, which I think made each of their final battles more compelling than the Aang versus Ozai final interaction. Yes. What else I didn't think ATLA did well is Aang's method of actually ending the war. He uses obviously energy bending to take away Ozai's fire bending, and that was kind of how he ended the war while still keeping to his moral values. Because like that entire end point, the entire point of it was Aang had to choose between his own moral values, like I'm not a killer, like I don't believe in violence, and ending the war that the Fire Nation had wrought across the land. So those were like the two things that he had to morally struggle between. And then like they randomly kind of throw the lion turtle in there. They're like, here it is. Here's a sudden solution that you can have. And it's
Well, it's
like,
the MacGuffin, yeah.
yeah, in my opinion, Aang didn't like work to achieve that third option. Like if he had somehow achieved that third option on his own terms, like, and he figured this out on his own, I don't know, instead of just randomly being handed it on a silver platter by the lion turtle, I think the ending could have been a little bit more satisfying. But the way it was done, I think could have been better. What do you guys think?
Jackie?
I was gonna let you go first this time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like it's the MacGuffin. It's the thrown in element that will save the day and make it easier for him to make the decision. But I feel like um yeah, he's painted as a monk, like do no harm, no violence. He's still violent. Like he still beats the shit out of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, killing is that kind of extra step that no one wants to take, but um I don't know. I think energy bending in of itself is very neat, and especially in Legend of Korra when they go into energy bending with Juan's backstory is amazing. But I mean, yeah, it's just thrown in. I think also to this effect where Aang has to choose between two things and in conflict was when he had to like choose between Katara and the Avatar state.
Oh
And I
yeah.
didn't understand why, because that monk dude was like, you can't have any earthly attachments, you can't achieve the Avatar state. Next season, he loves Katara still in the Avatar state. And I'm just like, so where was the pay? Like, what did he have to do? Like, what was the what was the point of not letting him have it in the second season? Just so what? He'd have to make some harsh decision and then Azula could shoot him with lightning? Like, don't give me that crap. Like,
And
and then
then,
we have Legend of Korra,
yeah,
where
that it wasn't even brought up.
it's
No.
Korra's in love with like a billion people and she's in
Yes!
the Avatar state. Like, come on now, honey.
Doing the airbending racing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a glaring plot hole of ATLA in season 2, which was like, what happened to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Jackie, what do you think?
What was the original question?
About Aang just getting energy bending and having like this safe way to get
yes,
out. So you didn't
that's
have to
right,
make the decision.
I do agree. It was a little bit thrown in. I kind of wish there had been a little bit more premise that the lion turtle, in and of itself, which we do see a little bit more in Korra, could have been introduced a little bit differently. Like you said, work for it or have some kind of thing to actually earn it. I did think the advice he got from the past avatars was really great. And the one thing that, one of the pieces of advice that has always stuck with me is, I think it's the former Air Nation avatar when she says, this isn't just about your morals, this is about the world, and that kind of supersedes you. I think that was a really incredible piece of advice, even though it ended up essentially not applying. I do think that was essentially the right thing to say in that moment.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would have been far more impactful if Aang had to sacrifice his morals for the world.
Yes.
Because it's like the story of like innocence lost, where a child matures into an adult and realizes the world is not cut and dry and it's not easy all the time.
Right.
But the writers, probably because it was a kid's show, presented him with an easy option. But I do love Kiyoshi's advice, which was just straight up kill him.
Yeah.
And that one episode where she comes back in his body and was like, this trial is all bullshit. I did kill that man and I'd do it again.
I did kill him, but you're wrong about everything else.
Yes. Oh my god, don't even get me started on Kyoshi. And I do think that is really impactful. One, in a TV show, and two, in a quote children's TV show. And kind of going back to the writing, I think that's an area where ATLA succeeds so well. Is that while it may be a TV show in ways it is written to children, it doesn't write down to them, if that makes sense too.
Yeah.
And they have a wonderful way of introducing topics like murder and tyranny and death in a way that does not feel childish. And I think that's incredibly important in any writing, but especially in children's media today.
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely mature themes, and I didn't have this written down, but there are definitely mature themes in ATLA that is written for children, yes, but it does teach them a lot of these lessons. And I think another reason they presented Aang with that third option was because they were trying to stress the theme of, oh, violence isn't the answer. And there were multiple times throughout the show where they kind of expressed that theme, and I think they wanted to make sure that they hit home on that, and saying like, oh, there's always another way out. But sometimes when you look at sometimes there's not another way out, but
sometimes you gotta kill the tyrant.
Sometimes it's gotta go.
Yeah.
All right. I wanna wrap up what I think ATLA didn't do well, so we can get on to Korra because we're 30 minutes in. I love how we could talk about this forever.
We could.
But yeah, let's try to keep to the schedule of the podcast. Season 1 and 3 filler episodes. Pat, you mentioned this season 1 was just there was so much filler. There was so much filler in that season, and you can probably watch like maybe 5 or 6 episodes of season 1 and still get what happens throughout the rest of the show, I'd say.
Yeah.
You could probably toss out some episodes. Like you could straight up toss out like the episode with Haru and perhaps the episode with Jet, and you could probably just toss them out and not watch them and you'd understand the rest of the show.
Yeah.
You could also probably toss out the King of Omashu too, but I loved that episode, honestly. It was a filler episode, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Some of the filler episodes were really good, but some of the other ones you could just toss out, and the Great Divide, everyone doesn't like that episode.
Yeah.
You could probably toss out so many of them. So season 1 filler, again, I know that, they had 3 seasons to kind of expand on this character, expand all the characters and, go through all these stories. But it was a lot of filler throughout in season 1 and season 3 too. Like the first half of it, I know, Pat, you mentioned the second episode where Aang goes to school, and there were a lot of other really compelling episodes in the beginning of season 3, like the bloodbending episode was a really interesting episode. Again, you could probably toss it out and it wouldn't affect the story, but it was a really compelling episode. And there were some other, sprinkled in episodes there that you probably didn't have to watch. But,
Yeah.
I think that if there was a little bit less filler in season 1, I would have liked it more. Perhaps giving us more plot-driven season 3 episodes in the first half also would have been pretty good. What do you guys think?
I agree.
I do love season 3 for Combustion Man, right? That was season 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do love. I mean, there's this one episode where they're all chilling out by like some lake or something, and they just wake up and Combustion Man is just ready to throw hands, and he like shoots a heat combustion wave. Aang like air bends it back, and then both Toph and Katara immediately go off and just start shooting like boulders and water at him, and they escape. And the fight sequence lasts like a minute. But it's so well animated that whole minute, and just how fast everyone is ready to fight is so funny. Like they're just ready to go off on each other.
Loved it. But they had to be that way,
They're on the run.
Yeah, they had to be on edge. Last thing I didn't like about ATLA was, this is one scene that I did not like, and it was that scene in the Ember Island Players, where Aang kissed Katara. When Katara was like, I'm very confused right now, like, I don't want to deal with this. And Aang was like, here's my mouth. And I was like,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So this is very confusing on both ends, because one, there was tension between both of them that they liked each other. So Katara's having this moment, Aang just plants one on her. Inappropriate, definitely. Like, you shouldn't just be pushing yourself onto people. However, like after the war, or after like the big battle, they have a moment and she does kiss him, and I'm just like I think they wanted to just make tension between them before the final battle, just for more drama. But I think it would have been way more mature for these two characters to have a moment before the final battle started, because they've grown together. They both know they like each other. It's been said, subtly before. I think it would have been great if they had a moment before the final battle where they admitted that they liked each other, because then there would have been stakes going in for sure that Aang needed to get back and Katara needed to get back for each other. And then afterwards, they have their moment, but I'm like, obviously they're gonna get together. Like, no one was gonna be like, "Oh, the show's over. I guess Katara ends up with Zuko now."
Katara died.
A lot of people wanted that. A lot of people.
I know.
Are
a lot
Zutara.
of people did want that.
Yes.
Zutara.
Although I have to say that
Kuko.
I did what Kuko. No.
Who?
Kuko,
Um,
Katara, and Zuko. That's a better ship name than everyone else.
Kuko. I do have to say though, I do feel that Katara and Aang was a little bit forced, if you ask me. Um, I I don't know about Zuko and Katara. Like, I don't know if that would have been the better ending, but I do think
Yeah.
that Katara and Aang was a little bit forced, if you ask me.
I mean, that I think is falling back on it being a kid show again. Like they just wanted a good romance to kind of make the little kids' hearts melt, you know?
Oh, and
You
yeah,
know?
obviously the main character has to end up with the crush throughout the entire show, or else it wouldn't be a kid
course.
show.
Wouldn't be good
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Yep.
mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on to the Legend of Korra.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
wait, real quick. Let me just. I need to close these curtains. I'm getting blinded.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can't wait to talk. This is no secret now. No secret now that I love this fucking show.
Mm,
I love it.
oh, I love you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All
Look
right,
at
is Jackie back? Here we are.
Yeah,
I am
they're there.
back. I'm right here.
Okay, let's go. Legend of
Let's go.
Korra.
Let's get at it.
So, what I think the Legend of Korra did well. First of all,
Everything.
everything. No. First of all, the animation style was clearly better than The Legend of Aang. Like, from start to finish, you kind of see, like, I know it was made in a later time where they could possibly have more advanced, like, animation technologies. But in my opinion, it's pretty clear, like, Legend of Korra's animation was better than The Last Airbender. And I don't know if either of you have any other things to say about that, but that's what I think.
No, 100%. They actually, the first season was animated by one company, and then by the second season, and the second company had come in to take over. And even though the animation style is different, it's like very slightly different in the fight scenes only. It's still very good animation quality throughout the show, in my opinion. But yeah, I loved it. I love it.
Yep.
I think it's great animation. I think the animation of ATLA is great, especially like for its time and for the production series. But I did like seeing the change in animation style and quality that Korra brought to the franchise.
Yeah. So second point, and I think we mentioned this a little bit, but it fulfills kind of a darker theme, which was kind of the point of the show too. Like, it was supposed to be a little bit darker and a little bit more mature than The Last Airbender, because obviously they knew that their target audience for this show was going to be older, because you would have a lot of the older Avatar The Last Airbender fans who were going to be, either teenagers or adults at that point. So they knew that they had to appeal to a little bit more of an older audience. And it very much succeeds, I think, in doing this, because obviously we saw numerous characters die on screen,
Yeah.
which is something that I don't think we had at all in ATLA. Maybe there was one. But, we saw Amon and Tarlok die together
I mean,
on
a
the
murder
boat.
suicide, a
Yeah.
murder suicide
That
on a Nickelodeon show. Like,
When that happened, whoa, yeah. I was like, what am I watching?
What are we watching?
I was like, oh, are they getting away? Like, okay, cool, no
Yeah,
repercussions
like
for the evil people. And then he opens up the gas tank, and I'm like,
That-
oh
Oh.
shit.
Plea as well. We saw Plea
Who?
murdered on screen.
Oh,
Exploded.
I
Lynn
think-
was like
crushed. Yeah.
gagged.
Yeah.
I think I audibly gasped when that happened on screen. I was like,
Yeah. Yes.
I was like, oh my god, she
That
exploded.
that whole sequence was just. Oof.
Like, not only do I love Lynn and Sue, and I love the fight together that they're having against Plea, but then, like, Sue is the one, I think, that rips off her armor, throws it on Plea's head, and it explodes. And I'm
Yep.
like, what the fuck did I just see?
Yep.
Ooh.
And the last example that I could think of was the Earth Queen as well, when Zahir literally just suffocates her, and we're all like, is this a
Like-
show?
On screen murder.
On
Yes.
screen murdered, gasping for air.
Yeah.
Murdered.
Because, like, Plea and Tarlok and Amon, or Lunok, whatever, or no, what's the other one's name? Their real name. Doesn't matter.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Noah
No
Talk.
Talk.
All their deaths, like, it's an instant, and then the camera pulls away, and you just see, like, the smoke of it all, or you see Zahir's reaction to Plea's death, Earth Queen is on camera, suffocating.
Moments.
On camera.
For moments. Like, it goes on. And
then
it's like,
it pulls out, and then Zahir's like,
that's it, bitch.
Sorry, bitch.
Sorry,
I
you
killed
dead.
you.
Oh my God. But I think it was good for the show because obviously it had a more darker theme and it was meant for a more mature audience. So I think it was fine.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I think it was really good. Next point, Korra's character development in season 4. Actually, throughout the whole show. So what I have written here is she starts off as a very like rambunctious and hot-headed person, but at the end becomes, much more responsible, much more timid person. She kind of reminds me of Aang a little bit towards the end, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think it was just her growing more mature and more responsible as she goes through these different seasons. And you see the growth in her, even from season 1 to season 2. Like, you see the growth in her. But season 4, when she has to go through that, she goes through the traumatic experience at the end of season 3, and she has to kind of overcome being disabled for a little while, and she has to overcome the PTSD of dealing with Sahir. It was real good.
Chef's kiss.
Okay. I could literally talk about this forever. Because a lot of people will make this comparison. I will be very brief if I can be. A lot of people make the comparison of which is the better main character, Aang or Korra. And a lot of people will start off by saying, like, Aang lost his entire nation. He lost, time as a child because he was frozen in ice and woke up in this new world. And then he had the whole, world on his shoulders and he had to go fight the Fire Nation and save the world, basically. And I'm like, that's valid. But that doesn't invalidate all of Korra's struggles, and it doesn't make them less so, because Korra was secluded as a child, robbed of her youth, kept on a compound. And when she gets out into the world and Aang got out into the world, they both had this feeling of like, oh my God, the world is so big, I have to see everything. And they were both very lighthearted about it. But I think Korra had a much more realistic view of the world going into it than Aang did. Aang was like, everything's rainbows. But then Korra initially got to Republic City, everything was fun, but then quickly realized that that's not how the world works. And then just seeing her through all of the trauma she experiences through all the seasons, and then in the 4th season, literally pulls the trauma out of her body by metal bending herself to free herself of that experience physically, but then realizes she's also emotionally broken, and then meets Zahir again to emotionally help her through the trauma. Is it healthy to go see the person that traumatized you to help you experience and go through trauma? Probably not. But that idea that she had to both heal physically and mentally and emotionally, that's huge for a kid show. And I think,
it's so good.
Amazing.
It was so good. So that storyline and just, Korra's development as a character was just, amazing. It was amazing to see her overcome those obstacles, and, it eventually empowers her to defeat Kuvira, who the first time she, faced Kuvira got her ass handed to her.
Oh, wrecked.
Oh, and just fucking destroyed. And you don't... hear me out on this one. I don't think you see that character development that much when you're with Aang. There was that one episode, I think it was the beginning of season 3, right after he got shot with lightning, where he kind of goes through this traumatic experience where he's like, oh, the world thinks I'm dead. The world thinks I failed again.
But that's quickly remedied, I feel like, right?
It's like a 1 episode kind of thing.
At the end of the episode, yeah.
Yeah, but Korra's is obviously a lot more prolonged. You get to experience it more with her.
Korra joins Fight Club, basically, in the Earth Kingdom, cuts her hair off and starts beating the shit out of random Earthbenders, and then hallucinates her trauma everywhere she goes.
Yeah. Korra essentially quits being the Avatar for a hot minute. She literally just is like, I cannot do this physically, emotionally, mentally. And I do think that was incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Not to mention really quick that as we said before with Avatar Last Airbender, Aang had this big choice to make whether to kill the Fire Lord or not. But then he's given this third option. I think Korra is presented with far well, not greater, but still moral dilemmas, but actually has to choose. Like when it's her opening the spirit portal or keeping it closed, she
Yes.
opens it, which has huge ramifications and really big problems afterwards that she has to deal with. She's not given some like easy third option that makes everyone happy. She has to do the hard thing. Um, both times she opens spirit portals because this bitch does it twice.
Yep.
And she's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep them open and let the spirits through. Whatever. Not
Yeah.
whatever. Obviously, it has ramifications. But yeah, she's going to merge the world of spirits and humans again. That's wild.
Go off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to move forward a little bit. So what I think it did well, season 3 and 4 were
Oh.
just, those storylines were
Ugh.
both amazing. And I liked these 2 seasons. And I think it was because that the writers were given the 2 seasons, say like, hey, you have 2 more
Yes.
seasons to write.
Yes.
And they
yes.
they intertwined them together. They're like, okay, we can pull these 2 storylines off in these 2 seasons, and wrap it up towards the end because they knew it was going to be the end. As opposed to the first 2 seasons in which they thought the first season was just going to be the show.
Yeah.
So they had to introduce all the characters and then wrap it up in like 12 episodes. And it felt really rushed, and it was also not that great. I mean, I'll get to this a little bit later, but seasons 1 and 2 were not that amazing, if you ask me. But seasons 3 and 4, chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
So many just chef kisses everywhere.
But also the villains of those 2 seasons, I think, were the most compelling villains. Zahir and Kuvira. Oh my! Like, and Pat, you mentioned this earlier, but you felt that the villains need to be relatable, or you have to be able to understand them for there to be good villains. Both Zahir and Kuvira, you can understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to do. Like Zahir is trying to take down tyrannical leaders and allow people to be free, and Kuvira is trying to restore order over a chaotic nation. So you can understand where they're both coming from, and I think that makes them really, really compelling villains.
Not to mention the voice acting of both of those characters is fantastic. I forget who plays Zahir. He's one of my favorite villains, I think, of all times. Kuvira is played by Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter, and her voice acting is so phenomenal and compelling for her. They both do an amazing job of literally breathing life into both of those characters.
I think Kuvira is like top tier villain because she represents a real nationalist idea. Like, talk about nationalism today. She is the OG nationalist in that country. She's like, Earth Kingdom's the best. We don't need to be relying on people. We don't need the United Republic taking our land for the Republic City. We are going to take back everything. We're going to be one unified nation, and we're going to be the best nation. And I'm like, what does that sound like?
Oh.
Who?
Trump? Any dictator in history of the United States or history of the world? Like, she inspires her people, crushes those who don't support her, and bends them to her will. And I love it.
I love it so much, and I'm not going to completely nerd out about her character design. I have, for the record, all the concept art books for Korra. I love concept art. I love concept art. Her armor is incredibly cool because all of her little, like, she has like these side pauldrons almost.
Yes.
How she's able to bend them off, and they touch on that in the book, and it's just really incredible to see all the variations.
Everything she wears is usable. Like she's like, I'm not wasting time. I'm going to be an optimal, efficient machine of war and destruction.
And it's so relatable to her character, like as a person. Like nothing goes to waste. All encompassing under like one nation under God.
Under Kuvira. I mean, I'd love to be under Kuvira. You know what I mean?
We all know that Kuvira pegged what's his face.
Oh, for sure.
Batar,
yeah. Not now, Batar.
Yeah.
There's a whole group of people that want Korra and Kuvira together.
I was gonna say, how do we know that Kuvira that they even did it? We don't know.
There's a large following of people who really think Kuvira and Korra could get together. I'm just like,
that would be a dangerous relationship, I think.
It would. They're both very powerful.
Yeah.
But here's my list, because now that we have gone through kind of all the villains of the show, well, we didn't really mention Amon and Unalaq yet. I'll get to them later. But here's my list of the villains for the entire both shows, in my opinion. Zahir, I think, is the best. Azula meets my number 2. Then Kuvira. Then Aman. Then Ozai. Then Unalaq. That's my list.
Who was Unalaq? Was her uncle?
Unalaq was her uncle in season 2.
Yeah.
I was not compelled by him at all.
No, neither was I.
Yeah.
I didn't find him compelling. The rating of season 2, I was not the biggest fan of.
Yeah, I think they had a lot to do in terms of like setting up all the spirit stuff. Rava and Vatu won. They just had way too much going on. They were like, we have to just keep like building the plot to get to the ending so we could just finish the season basically.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Unalaq fuses with Vatu, sure. Like, okay.
Let's do it.
I was hoping really quick that when they fused, it would turn into like a Korra Rava situation. But then he turned into that giant monster, and I was like, well, this is irrelevant now. I kind of wanted him to start a cycle of dark avatars that would be like a recurring antagonist for the light avatar. Where he bonded
cool.
with Vatu, and then he started his own cycle. But like they kind of was just like, nah, just make him grow to the size of a skyscraper and have her bend him away, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, how she got rid of him too was wild as well. It's like
spirit bending, you know, energy bending.
I was like, hello.
And then Jinora appears with a shard of Rava,
and she has wings.
And she has wings. Don't even get me started about Jinora. But
yeah,
I wasn't super compelled by that. I really thought that there would be. My heart was broken when the connection to the past lives was severed. And as a person who, like grows up with the franchise and all of that other things, that loss of the connection between these two series, I greatly felt that. I do know, I haven't read it, but I do know that they somehow repair that in a book or something.
Well, I'm annoyed by that just because people will blame Korra for bad decision making, and that's her fault that the past lives are gone. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the writers did it, not Korra. Like, chill the fuck out. But also, like, it's a real loss. Like, it's not something small and easily repairable. It's a real loss that Korra now is alone as the Avatar and must do things on her own without any past wisdom like Aang was allowed to get at any time. Like, she constantly struggles with her spiritual self. So she's constantly, at ends with that, and she can't just call on them whenever she needs them, and I think that's more compelling.
Also, Aang also made bad decisions too. Like, Aang ran away from his home, and then his home got destroyed because the Fire Nation destroyed it.
And Aang was a shitty father, and I like that. I like them writing Aang as a shitty father. I like when Bumi and Kaya are like, okay, Tenzin, like, yeah, you got to go around the air temples. You know what we were doing? Fucking around with Mom, probably, because he was leaving us alone. I think that is iconic, relatable, and understandable that Aang would have so much on his shoulders now that he's like saved the world, that he now has to rebuild the Air Nation, that his one airbending child, he has to I have to teach you all the culture so you can push it onto your children.
Yep.
I think that's amazing.
I like that they showed Aang as flawed. I didn't like that some of the reasoning behind it. I think it was fantastic to show him as a flawed person, but I don't like the ways that they showed him as flawed. And I don't like the plot points that they chose to show those flaws. I think it did kind of go against some of his character arcs as a compassionate person and not leaving people out of things. I think they could have done that a little bit differently in a way that wasn't as, what I felt, betraying to Aang's character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do think that it makes sense because Aang really he felt a really bad loss when it came to losing the entire Air Nation, his entire culture. So I do see how him latching onto his one airbending child makes sense for his character, because he's like, oh, this is my chance to, rebuild what I've lost. So I think it makes sense for him. They didn't have to make it so Bumi and Kaya were traumatized by him not being around or anything like that. But I do think it makes sense for his character. I'm gonna bang through some of these other ones just so that we can get to some more stuff. So I'm gonna bang them out. Here we go. Less filler. There was less filler in Korra than there was in The Last Airbender, which I think was really good. I did like in season 2 when they established how the original Avatar came to be. I thought that was the most compelling part of season 2. with Avatar 1 and the Lion Turtles and, you know, Rava and Vatu. I thought that was all very good how they established that in season 2. Pat, it looked like you wanted to say something, which is why I paused.
No, I like my throat felt weird.
Oh, okay.
All right, my throat was doing something weird, like it was itchy, and I was trying to like get it to stop.
Was it from all the banging out that Matt was doing?
Yeah, my thrusty is a little worn out.
Okay, now, all right. Let's keep going. Bolin, I really liked his character.
Love Bolin.
He fulfills the comic relief character very well, but also as he gains traction as a more serious character in the later seasons, I loved that character development for him, especially in season 4 when he kind of joins Kuvira for a little bit and then realizes like, oh no, this is not good.
She's bad. She's bad news.
And kind of his development in season 3 as well with Opal, when he starts out like kind of like a ladies' man, but then Opal's like, what are you doing? I liked you better like being yourself. And he was like, oh.
Oops.
Oopsie whoopsie. And the last thing I think they did well, obviously one of the first, you know, basically kids shows to have any queer representation at all, with Korra and Asami getting together at the end. I did love that they did this, but I also have a part in what I think they didn't do well about it. And I will get to that in this next part because that's my last one on what I think it did well. Any other points on what you think Legend of Korra did well?
I just wanted to point out, I think, if I remember correctly, Korra is the first confirmed bisexual or queer, like LGBTQ character in a kids' cartoon show.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I didn't want to...
Definitely bisexual.
Yeah.
Same with Asami.
Yeah.
Or Pan. They don't really specify, obviously. What else did it do good? Everything else. It just did everything else.
Everything else.
I really liked, if you talk about like Amon and Tarlok, I think Tarlok is actually the better villain. Because they're kind of related, obviously, because they are relatives. But I think he's kind of the better villain because he kind of has to like play both fields as he is a politician, but also is trying to stop his own brother, which he didn't know at first it was him, but then he's like, once he bloodbet me, I felt it and I remembered. And I think he has in one season, because that season was supposed to be just the one season at first, he has like this really nice arc of being like this douchebag politician who you realize has a tragic backstory, who actually ends up fighting the Avatar for a little bit, but then redeems himself at the end by just murdering his brother and himself because he realizes the world cannot have really him or his brother in it because they are relics of the past that should not exist.
So, I definitely agree that it was definitely a tragic ending for both of them, but I think it needed to happen. I did think that Tarlok was a really compelling villain as well. I didn't have him on my list of villains, but absolutely. All right, so what I think it didn't do well. Seasons 1 and 2 I thought were very mediocre, both of them. I understand that they were meant to be kind of like standalone storylines because the writers didn't know that they were going to have additional seasons. So they really had to kind of compact these really compelling storylines and kind of wrap them up really quickly. They were both kind of mediocre, if you ask me, at the end of the day. Amon, while arguably one of the most powerful and scary villains that the show has ever presented, he did not impress me with the ending, and also his kind of final fight with Korra also was underwhelming. Because she
just kicks him out a window.
he takes her bending, and then for some reason she still has airbending. She kicks him out a window, and you're like, okay. Then it's
don't say for some reason she still has airbending. There's a perfectly good reason why she has access to airbending when she gets rid of all of her other bending. So don't even come for her. It's a perfectly valid reason because even Aang says when you're at your lowest point, you're the most open to change. So when she's at her lowest point, lost her bending, thinks she's no longer the Avatar, she's open to the more spiritual side, which airbending is a very spiritual-based bending, and she's able to have it. And she also airbends, not like an airbender, obviously, because she has no training in it, really. And she, like, throws a punch as if she's going to firebend with it, and it's lovely.
But I do not understand, though, why Amon didn't take her airbending as well. Like, that
she didn't
doesn't
have
make sense
access to it. She didn't have access to it prior to that moment.
That does not make any sense to me, because I thought the whole point of Amon's taking away the bending was something about him cutting off the connection with something in your brain, obviously, breaking that
Right.
connection between you and your bending. So it
Well,
didn't.
she has Rava, so like you could just say she has Rava, and then she just has it, like because Rava holds all of the bending. That's who actually holds it. She just lets the avatar have them one at a time or multiple at a time.
Yeah,
So
but I still didn't really understand that. Anyway, Unalaq also wasn't impressed at all by him as a character. He was basically just like a power hungry guy. Like I didn't really find him relatable at all. It was satisfying seeing Korra defeat him even after losing her avatar abilities. Like Korra basically just defeated him as Korra, which is pretty cool. Although, like we were talking about this before, how the ending was a little weird. Like Jinora appeared out of nowhere with the shard, and Korra defeats this fused Unalaq and Vatu with energy bending. And it's like, what is happening here?
I didn't like him too much. I didn't really feel a super great connection. I did like seeing the background between Korra's dad and Unalaq. I forget his name. No, I forget. But I was just like, he's there and he's doing a role, and that's more what it felt like.
Tonrock.
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I think that's good. I liked actually seeing the tension between the two water tribes and how one is the spiritual side and one's more of like a modern, or at least trying to be modern side, and how there's like how Unalaq described it as a spiritual like deficit. And I do like the whole Civil War aspect because that introduced Varric and Julie, and Varric and Julie are amazing characters.
God, yeah.
Their characters are great. They're the best things that came out of season 2.
Good.
They are that and Juan, honestly.
Yeah, but otherwise, I felt season 2 was underwhelming. Here was the part that I was talking about before. I loved that they did Korrasami, but I felt it was very censored, and obviously I think this is Nickelodeon's fault, not necessarily the writer's fault, because I was reading something saying that the writers wanted to make it more explicit.
Yes.
They wanted to have it obviously a lot more going on between Korra and Asami and building their relationship more, but Nickelodeon censored them, which is why you can still kind of tell obviously that Korra and Asami are getting closer throughout the show, but to me, when I watched the end of Korra, I was like, what happened? Yeah. They went on a trip together. That's cool. And then, then the writers came out and said, no, they're together. And I was like,
they're gay. And I was like, what?
Oh, no. I had the exact opposite. I had the exact opposite.
I didn't know until after I went back. I was like, what are they doing?
I will paint you a picture. I was sitting on my bed. We had hooked up the computer to the TV to stream it.
Oh, boy.
And my ex was there. And we were watching it, and it's they get up, they're walking towards the portal, and they both look at each other, and I just start like slapping him. I'm like, oh my god, it's happening, and he's like, oh my god, it's happening, and they were together, and I was like, this is a thing, like this is 100% them saying they're together, because the way they look at each other at the end, and they have that Aang and Katara music starts to play, or like the Avatar: The Last Airbender music starts to play, I'm like, bitch, it's over. Confirmed big lesbian bisexual adventures in the spirit world. So
I liked it. I was there for it. I didn't see it coming. I will say though, I found afterwards at some point, I think it was like on Tumblr, somebody went in and like looked at the essentially like cinematography cues and like little animation cues that had been put in there to show little Korrasami moments, and it's incredible. Right. Once you go back and look at all those little moments, you can definitely piece it together.
Yeah.
Like she's the only one that she wrote to during her tryst, somewhere else. They have that scene where they like reunite after all this time, and Korra's like, or not Korra, Asami's so upset about it. She's like, I can't believe you would just be gone forever and not tell me anything. Like, what the hell's your problem?
No, I do think once you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh, okay, it's obvious how they were building this up throughout season 3 and 4. But when you're first watching it, I didn't see it coming, and even at the very end, I was like, what does that mean? Like they're going on a fun vacation together.
What does that all mean?
I was like, oh.
And then I was like, oh wait, they're gay. That's great, but also like it was very censored in my opinion. Like
it was.
They could have done it a lot better, which I loved that they came out with a comic that shows basically what happened directly after that, and you get to see them being more explicit about it.
Yeah, and then spoiler alert. Well, it's about Kaya. Kaya is also like on the spectrum of gay and bi, and she's like, hey, I got around. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, Kaya coming out as a whore is the best part of this comic.
Oh my god.
And she has there's like this nice moment between the two of them, because I think at that point Korra hadn't been out to her family, and Korra was like nervous, and Kaya was like, listen, you know,
It is what
Yeah,
it is.
it is what it is.
Is she, you know?
You know.
You know, I do love also that Korra and Asami represent like the two extremes of queer women, where Asami's very much like the lipstick lesbian kind of character, where she's very beautiful, and Korra's the more butchy. But then both of them have nice alternative dynamics, where Asami's like this badass in terms of fighting,
my
and
God,
she's completely
yeah.
capable of handling herself, and she's a strong businesswoman who's running a company. And Korra can have these moments of, you know, emotional openness and
Yeah.
more like stereotypical feminine traits as well. I think both of them cover the gambit of representation that you want.
Yeah. But I do also think that Korra and Asami's love, while very censored, was stronger, and it made more sense to me than Aang and Katara at the end. I'm just gonna say.
I can understand that. No, I can understand
Totally
that.
get that. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Last thing that I didn't like about Korra, and that was just I mentioned this before, that there was a main character I didn't like, just Mako.
Here we go. Yep.
It's Mako, yeah.
Yeah, he was very underwhelming. His character was bland to me. The way they kind of forced him and Korra together in season 1, and obviously breaking them up in season 2. Did I say season 4? I meant season 1. They forced them together in season 1, and then they obviously broke them up in season 2. But the original kind of point was to have them together. And knowing Nickelodeon, I actually thought that they were going to force them together again at the end of season 4. That's my expected ending, because I just know Nickelodeon would pull some crap like that. But then they didn't, which is amazing.
Thank God, yeah.
But after season 2, you could probably just like get rid of Mako.
Kill him.
And the story probably would have been relatively the same.
Thomas, kill Mako.
Kill him.
Donna Thomas, kill Mako.
No, you
Thomas.
probably could have gotten rid of him and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, he was like the generic Zuko interloper, but without the Zuko character arc. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to like, because you said before, Bolin had like this nice character arc. Obviously Korra and Asami do as well. But Mako, like, I don't see him progress. I don't like when he became a detective, I was like, okay, that's cool, give him a new job. But like beyond that, he was still this kind of staunch character that was like, you know, like he was just there to be her first love, and then after that, they were like, well, gotta put him somewhere.
Yeah, what
so
do we
just
do
write
with
him
this
in the
character
pod.
now?
Yeah, he had very little personal development whatsoever. He was kind of like a bad Zuko cosplayer. Like, he just kind of like threw his character together the night before, and like he's kind of the bad boy, but we never see anything pay off from his efforts. I think his and Bolin's relationship is probably the best saving grace that they have, and I do think there could have been a little bit more development there too, even. But like you said, he fulfilled a role, and then it felt like the writers or someone just didn't have anything for Mako to do or to grow from. I really didn't like his awkwardness around Korra and Asami after they're kind of like hanging out, and he's like, ma'am, and he like he doesn't know what to do with himself, and we never really get to see a gratifying moment of, I almost called him Zuko, that would have been terrible, of Mako being within himself and growing in any way.
Like, I would have loved, this is what I would have loved, if they gave him a really good plot line with Lin, where she's his boss, but like becomes a mentor to him and becomes like a surrogate parent because of his parents, you know, passing. I think that would have been great. Have a moment or moments between them working together, but then they kind of just wrote him off as a dumb detective in season 2, and Lin was always like, he's just a beat cop. Yeah. But then at the end, when he solves the whole Civil War nonsense, she's like, I always believed in it. I was like, you bitch.
You didn't. Yeah, you didn't. I think that would have been so compelling, especially because Lin, right? Yeah, it's just like, hard ass. She has her own trauma with Tenzin. Let's not even get into that.
Oh my god,
Oh.
yes.
And that
yes.
would have been like, it seems like she doesn't have many fulfilling personal relationships in her life either. And I think that could have been such a good pairing and a really great moment to depict.
Yeah.
Can
and
I
then
also-
she has all of her great drama with her sister.
Yes, I was just about to say that I completely forgot about this, but this is what Legend of Korra did well. Lynn's entire story in like season 3 with her sister.
Yeah. She does the whole acupuncture thing. She experiences all of her past trauma, like Korra does in season 4. Great mirror images of each other.
Yes.
And then fights her sister at the end to kind of work it out. And that's not a healthy way to work it out, but it's their family's way of working it out, apparently.
Yeah, and then even her problems with Toph, too. Like, I think they eventually work it out, but, like, that as well. It's like...
I mean, another absent parent. Like, Toph was like, I'm gonna fuck a bunch of guys, have multiple kids from different fathers, and a lot of people think Sokka is actually Lynn's father, or Sue's father.
I've heard that, too.
And she's like, well, I had kids, I was a great detective, I'm gonna live in a tree. Everyone else, Lynn, look after your sister Sue. And then she dips, and then of course, you know, Aang dips on his kids. So I think that similarity between the two of them is pretty good. I like that.
In my opinion, I think Toph's parenting and her parental arc, if you will, made more sense to me than Aang's. Just looking at it from the perspective that Toph had such a micromanaged childhood that Toph was polar opposite.
Yeah, she was like, I'm not even gonna parent them.
Yeah. Like I don't really care what you do. And to see that come to fruition, I think paid off really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. But we are quite over time here, so let's wrap up.
Who cares?
What are you,
the viewers love this.
Overtime?
The viewers love this. I love a long podcast.
I loved every second of this. So, but let's ask the final question. What do the gays think? What is better, Legend of Korra versus Legend of Aang? Pat?
Listen, I think if I have to choose one to watch, it'll always be Legend of Korra over Legend of Aang. But I think they're both amazing. I think they're both amazing for different reasons, and there's some similarities and similar reasons. But I think the one that I find more satisfying and gratifying and amazing is Legend of Korra.
Okay, Jackie?
I kind of like what Pat said. I choose each one for different reasons, so I don't know if one is better to me. I think ATLA sets up a really cool universe, does their whole thing really well, and I think Legend of Korra does a good job of taking that, building from it, and exploring new characters and new times. I forgot to mention the one thing I didn't like about Korra so much was the boxer bending style. I did like the different styles of bending that each nation had in ATLA, but yeah, I like them both for different reasons.
Did you choose which one though?
My answer is I don't.
Wow. Okay. Whatever.
I can't choose.
Listen, the boxing style bending I like though, just because Republic City is supposed to represent America with a mixture of different bending styles. So.
Yes.
Okay.
I do see that.
Fine. Jackie didn't choose.
I'm not complying to your binary.
Just like Korra and Asami.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, here's my opinion. I loved both of them very much. They're very near and dear to my heart. But I think ATLA will always hold a slightly better place in my heart just because I grew up with it. And I watched it so many times that it's always going to be, I think, a little bit better, in my opinion, than The Legend of Korra.
I think I have the opposite reason. It's because I didn't really watch the whole Avatar: The Last Airbender while it was airing. When Legend of Korra came out, I saw the first season and rewatched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but consistently watched Korra as it was airing. So I think that probably biases me towards it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's go ahead and wrap up then. So thanks everybody for watching and listening to this episode of What Do the Gays Think? If you don't follow us on Twitter, please give us a follow. That's where we post a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of memes, and also all of our podcast episodes. So go ahead and give us a follow at WDTGT Podcast. If you like games and you want to watch us stream on Twitch, we stream 3 times a week, Fridays, Saturdays, and Mondays. You can follow us at What Do the Gamers Think? That's GAYMERS. Go ahead and give us a follow there. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. Also, like and subscribe. If you're on any podcast platform, go ahead and leave us a rating. And also subscribe to our podcast. That'd be absolutely amazing. Also, being that Jackie's here, I will plug her Twitch as well. Jackie also
Thanks.
plays a variety of games. Jackie's Twitch is Jackie_the_bananas. All of this will be in the description of both the podcast episode and the YouTube episode. Did I miss anything?
No.
Great.
I don't think so.
Then thanks everyone for listening and watching. I am Matt Klubeck.
I am Korra's PTSD ghost that
Oh my
follows her
God!
around
Oh my
until she
God!
bends it out of her body. Patrick.
Wow. I'm Jackie, and if I had to choose any element to bend, I
Oh,
think it'd be
yes.
fire
Ooh.
or air. I go back and forth. But I'm
Matt, which
Jackie,
one?
Airbender, vandewater. Matt?
Which one would you bend?
Ooh.
Yeah, which one, Matt?
First of all, I thought Jackie would choose water because it's in her name. But anyway. I would choose air, I think.
Patrick,
shit.
what about you? It's your turn.
I would choose probably fire because I think it's, well, all of them have versatility, but fire has the spirit healing, fire, and lightning. So, and I could change the color if I got really cool like Azula. So I got fire. Yeah.
I still think it's cool that Azula was the only one able to bend blue fire in the entire show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even her father could.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.